Hello, fellow Fumblers, and welcome to another episode of the Film Fumblers podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a samurai movie named Harakiri. This movie was directed by Masaki Kobayashi and released in 1962. So without further ado, my name's Adrian.
I'm Jay.
I'm Taryn.
Hey, it's James.
All right, boys. Are we all drinking sake? Is that...
Sure, man.
No, I'm just kidding.
I had some.
I wish, man.
I'm just drinking gin again. I feel like I drink gin pretty often.
Whiskey for me.
Gin,
Tito's,
whiskey.
as always.
Some nasty vodka.
Gin, whiskey, vodka. All right, cheers, guys. Bottoms up.
Cheers.
Cheers, mates.
Wow.
Boy, that's something.
Ooh, I need something.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. What are you guys drinking on the side?
Like I said earlier, not a sponsor. Santa Fe Brewery's hard seltzer. Very bubbly, very champagne-y. Little boozy.
Not a sponsor yet.
Little boozy. There's a little bit of lemon.
Snicket?
A little bit of lemon. I love the can. It's nothing but lemons. I don't know if y'all.
Oh, I
see
know.
that. It's really
That drew
cool.
me
It is a
in.
nice can.
It's really
Nice.
cool. But
I'm drinking, what do you say it, Taryn? Oishi?
Yeah.
Whiskey?
Oishi.
What is it? What does that mean? Delicious?
Oishi means delicious, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's the name with the H.
Right. Whatever it is. Yeah, it's
Delicious whiskey.
it's not bad. I'm not too versed in Japanese whiskeys, but it's okay.
yeah.
We got a Roni seltzer, and as backup, Bud Light Lemon. Make the return.
Hey, how's
You
that
wanted to
lemonade?
change it.
How's that lemonade?
You know what? It's pretty damn good.
I agree.
Believe
Try
it.
it,
I don't
man.
believe it. Okay.
It's pretty damn good.
Okay.
Oh,
And I got all they had. BL Celts.
BL
Let's go.
Celts. I'm kind of double fisting here because I opened this up in the pre-show and Mango White Claw. So
Hey, what
Nice.
flavor is your BL Salts?
Mango.
Mango. He's the only person who says mango.
are we drinking?
Mango?
Are we drinking three different
mango,
seltzers?
mango?
Whoa! Nice.
Holy shit.
Unplanned. The
That's
synergy,
really
ladies
cool.
and gentlemen.
Everyone's
Okay.
locked in except for me. I'm okay.
You're locked in.
I'm dropping the ball tonight. Goodbye.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't know what to expect at all with this movie. Like
Mhm.
1962 Japanese samurai movie. I mean, I've never seen anything in that genre, So I had no expectations going into this, but yeah, what's everyone's opening thoughts? Are you guys experienced with this type of movie or anything like that? Let's go to Taryn first because he was kind of the one to suggest this genre and to kind of go into this. So throwing you on the
Yeah.
spot, Taryn.
So I've been wanting to watch these old Japanese samurai movies for a long time, and I finally dove in. And this was the first one that I watched a couple months ago. And I've seen two since that are different.
Mhm.
And I think they're really cool, man. Like, I don't know how many old movies you guys have seen, but yeah, it's just like a different feel, It's just so
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% is. And I like watching this, I was like, man, I guess I haven't seen a lot of old movies because this is like, I mean, granted, it's an old movie from another country from the 60s, but still, just the feel of an old movie, I'm just like, man, I don't experience this probably enough. Like, I probably need to watch more old movies.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if this is the oldest movie you guys have ever seen.
And that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, what? Like, okay, so when does color start getting into play here? Like, I'm literally that ignorant about when color comes into play. Like, I don't know. I don't know the date.
It's like
is
late
this movie
60s?
really that old? Like, it doesn't feel that old. And it's just
So-
interesting.
I thought it did feel really old. I mean, I don't know. Well, again, granted, it's also a period piece, right? So it's not
Well,
it's
sure.
not set in 1962. So it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
I agree with James that it didn't feel old to me. I was surprised at how much it didn't feel old,
Yeah.
being how old it was.
I mean, there's some things that are obvious, like jarring things that stick out that are like,
Sure.
okay, that's kind of bad or whatever.
yeah, products
but-
of the time, like
Yeah.
especially
Right.
like the violence and stuff is not anywhere near like it is now or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah. Oldest movie, I don't, maybe this is wrong. I mean, outside of like snippets of Chaplin stuff, probably.
Mhm.
It's probably Rear Window, which is 1954 and is in color. So
Oh, it's in color. See, so like that's what I
Well,
was wondering.
but
Like
also,
where?
when is it popularized to be in shot in color is kind of another thing, right?
Well, that was
Yeah.
that was like
I
the
don't-
whole thing. Technicolor is like the brand, right? That came
Oh,
out
right.
with modernized
Oh, with that film,
color film. I think is what
Okay.
is that's shot in Technicolor. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't like a flip of a switch where it was like, okay, everyone in the industry were going color now.
Mhm.
So it's got to, they had to have adopted it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it was more expensive and shit, something like that.
Mhm.
Back to back black and white movies, by the way, for the Film Fumbler
Yeah.
universe. Kind of
Yeah.
Very far apart.
Interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah, right. And it's funny. Like, did the Lighthouse feel? Well, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know. How to answer that
Lighthouse
question. Did the Lighthouse
feels-
feel older?
No, no.
I don't know. Obviously
It
not,
feels-
because
Yeah.
of how.
Well, but
Um,
maybe that's like a product of the actors too. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it. I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I wanted to cut in on something real quick. Wizard of Oz was 1939
What?
and was in
Oh.
Well,
color.
there you go.
Really? That's
Was
I
that
was,
a
So-
bit-
I was gonna mention Wizard of Oz, and I was like, I don't want to be a dumbass.
Well, that's
That sounds stupid.
probably the
But that's
oldest
probably
movie
the
I've seen
oldest
now.
movie we've all seen. Like everyone's
Oh, yeah,
seen
Wizard
it.
of
Yeah,
Oz
it's true.
And that's
Ooh.
color.
And they cut you in black and white, and then they take you into color, which was a really interesting.
Yeah, it's like a narrative
Ah.
reason, right?
When I saw that, because
Maybe
I
we
was
should watch that movie, huh?
We need
it'd
to.
be interesting.
I'm already like having so much to say. Yeah, we
When I-
definitely should.
When I saw that movie, I was probably like 7 or something, and whoever it was put it on, and it came in black and white, and I was like, I'm upset. Like, I don't want this. Turn this shit off, and then it went color, and I was like, okay, all right, this is fine. But
Were
now
you
I have a
waiting-
much bigger appreciation for black and white
Mm-hmm.
after,
Yeah.
especially after this movie.
Yeah.
And I think, to kind of get into like was it Taryn that said, I think you said how certain things about this movie dated a little bit, like the violence and like how it's not, super. But I think what they make up for with that, without having all of the violence, is just like being creative with it, and also like just having pretty good writing. Like the writing in this
Oh, yeah.
movie was really good.
Really,
And they focus on that a lot more, which I think like there was this age in like 2000 to 2010 where they were just like, hey, we have special effects now, guys, like let's dump everything we can into that and then throw everything else out.
Yeah.
Where like there was this weird time for action, or like
Mhm.
Yeah, Transformers and shit like
Yeah.
that.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
you're forced to make a good movie with a good story because
narrative,
that's
yeah.
all you have.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have anything else.
Mhm.
Which
But I mean, man, they did so much with their cinematography and
yeah,
everything. Just the framing of every shot was just perfect. It's
it's
very
that much
it's
more
very
important.
good. And the every pan shot was just fucking dope. I loved every
So
pan
cool,
shot.
man. The
And
zoom
also-
in stuff.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the zooming in. It for some reason,
Yeah.
it feels so much more impactful when they're
Yeah.
zooming in on
Yeah.
something. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa! Like,
Yeah.
why did
I
they do that?
love those shots, dude.
Yeah.
I love them, and we don't see them very often anymore. Like I feel like Tarantino uses them.
Yeah,
I feel like
it was very
maybe-
Tarantino-y.
Because it,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
retro, right?
Yeah.
It has like this
Kinda,
old
yeah.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in some ways it's. I think if you were to see it in modern things, like too much, it would feel really cheesy really easily.
Yeah.
And
And
even in
Tarantino
this-
is hard to be able to play with that line, right? But
Yeah.
other directors maybe just don't want to go there.
So do you think that Tarantino is like a bad example of those, or where it feels cheesy, like those cut? Because when I was
No.
watching it, I was like, okay, I can see he kind of picks from those kind of shots.
Yeah, he
and
definitely
stuff.
pays homage to like all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I
I
feel like
didn't-
it's more of a tribute than like trying to be cool or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like he doesn't overuse them, and I don't think they were overused here. But I think if they were overused, they would lose all of the impactfulness. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every time it happened, I was like, yes,
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, the pans, I swear one of them where you're going down a hallway backwards or something, you can like hear the creaking of the whatever they put the camera on.
The
Really?
floorboards or
I'm like, I
whatever.
wonder if that's what that is. Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. I didn't catch that, but
It's like
mean,
one time.
62, right? That's what,
Yeah,
80 years
1962.
ago? No, 60 years ago.
60.
Yeah.
6 years ago, a lot of things have changed, right? And most of those things have advanced rapidly in the last like 20 years. So
For sure.
we're working with old stuff here.
One thing
Oh,
that
yeah.
was very weird and noticeable and it kind of didn't make sense was why didn't they just shave their heads? Why did they use bald caps? Did you guys notice that they were very noticeably bald caps?
Yeah, they're like
Because
sideburns were really weird.
everybody had the
Yeah.
same kind of sideburns that were definitely like pasted on. It was bald
Huh.
cap, like that was super noticeable, and I was
I
like,
didn't
why
notice
not
a
just
bald
shave the
cap.
head? You didn't notice it
At all.
I thought it
didn't
was
notice it
very
either.
jarring. Like,
Yeah, it
Wow.
was weird.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
I
was
assumed
weird.
because of the like top knots and the hair they would leave that it wasn't.
I'm like pretty damn sure that it was bald caps because all of them were very similar. Everyone had the very similar sideburns. Like it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I just attributed that to like their tradition, like everyone you have to do this like haircut or something. Maybe.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
I didn't think about
Yeah.
that either. I just never thought about that. That's crazy.
Huh.
I thought in terms of appearance, the main character, I don't remember his name off the top.
Hanshiro Sugumo. I don't know.
He
Yeah.
looked so distinct compared to everybody
yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well, he was that-
Chijiwa as
he-
well.
He was like very dirty and like kind of older samurai,
Yeah.
right?
He looked like poor, quote unquote, like how he
Yeah.
was
Right.
supposed to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, as a Ronin. So let's kind of go into just about what the samurai are, who they were. They pretty much had masters that they were hired to protect, and during great times of peace, a lot of them were unemployed. So either their master died or they, whatever happened, they don't have work. So a Ronin is a term for a samurai who doesn't have a master. And it's actually, I looked it up. It's interesting. They still, that term is still sometimes used. I don't know how often, but in modern times to refer to somebody who's unemployed or to somebody who got out of secondary school but hasn't been gotten into university kind of thing.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it's just kind of a cool little thing that they still throw that word, but its original was from a samurai without work.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't know. Before watching this, I didn't really know much about samurai at all. And I mean, I've heard the word, seppuku, but so Harakiri and seppuku, does anyone know like what the difference is there? Like, is it?
It's the same.
Interchangeable.
Literally the same,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I want to say seppuku is like the actual name of the performance, whatever the heck you want to call that.
Yeah.
But then harakiri, I think hara and kiri is cut and belly, which I don't know which one is
Right.
which. I'm butchering this,
Cut
but
and
like
belly.
yeah. It's more literal, I feel like.
Oh.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, which for those of you who don't know, we kind of gave it. Yeah, it's where a samurai, it's like an honorable way for them to die. Similar to like the Vikings, where they would have the Addestup, where they would jump off a cliff, and it's like an honorable way to kill yourself. They disembowel themselves with their own samurai sword, and
And then get their head chopped off
Yeah.
by someone
So
else.
brutal.
So that was the one weird thing is like, okay, so like it's known as being honorable, but you remember what was his name? Sugomo? What was his name?
Yeah.
He's mentioning to his son-in-law that people are doing that, and they say that it's shameful. That it's shameful to do that. So
Well, so
that
what-
was
what the-
one thing that was kind of
I think what's shameful is that there are Ronin who are going to that temple who are pretending that they want to commit harakiri,
Oh, yeah.
but they're
Right.
doing it only
To get the
because they've
money.
heard that they'll give them money to just leave
Yeah.
because they think it's
Exactly.
honorable, So that's the shamefulness of it, not necessarily the actual act of it.
the actual act. Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
Their motive is what's shameful.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty interesting. I mean, we have Sugumo. I'm gonna have such a hard time saying these characters' names. He's introduced first at the temple, and he's saying that he wants to perform harakiri at their temple, and the temple is just really skeptical about it, and they think he's just trying to get money. And they mention right away, "Oh, you're from that particular master. Do you know this character named Chijiwa?" And at first he says no. I don't know. I guess I don't know. When I was watching it don't know. Chijiwa's character like felt like obviously it was going to be really important, but this movie takes a while to kind of get back to him. Like it focuses on Suguma like a lot for like a long time before it even mentions that they do know each other, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jay.
Well, I was gonna say I think for me it was like I guess it was like a good misdirect, like just having no idea what this movie was gonna be about, right? Like I kind of expected like action, and action is probably the last thing on the list here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Like the movie, you know, it was very interesting, and I was like sucked in, and I was just kind of like, you know, I just bought it all. Like, okay, yeah, he doesn't know him. It makes sense. There's a lot of the people working for this guy. You wouldn't know everybody. Yeah. Sure. You know, okay. And then I just thought he was kind of using him as like a tale to explain their skepticism, right? Of like, well, we had this guy who, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that's what's super interesting is samurai. You would imagine just like, oh, it's all duels and like war and all this crazy stuff, but like a lot of these movies are very dramatic and like criticisms of the samurai way, like how people used to be. You know what I mean? Like they're used to criticize current times, basically. But going back to what you were saying about, I lost my train of thought trying to say the whole thing. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
I feel like I mean, in school, you know, there's like a light touch on samurais. Maybe they don't really spend a ton of time there. You might learn a thing or two. You might read like Confucianism and stuff like that. But you kind of forget how, like, it makes sense that there's not a lot of action, right? They're very methodical. Like, it's a whole thing. And they're super intentional, and like it shows even in their fighting, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Which, yeah, I mean, to kind of go into like their fighting, and I think like one of the themes about this movie is hypocrisy, where that temple, you know, they pretend to, you know, be so honorable and like try to be like live the samurai way, but they're just liars. Like the counselor of this thing is just a complete liar. He's trying to cover up everything that's happening, and all of the other samurai there aren't really good fighters. Like they're all younger. They're not experienced in battle.
Yeah,
and I think there's a line about it where, you know, if it's like learning to swim on land or something. Like until you're actually in the water, you won't know how well you can actually swim. And you see that with Sugumo's character. He's older, he's battle trained, he's battle hardened, and you know, towards the end fight scene, he's kicking all their ass, you know. And it's it's like it's interesting that they act so noble and that they're so high up in this way, but they don't really know much about it.
Yeah, they talk a lot about the facade, and I loved all that stuff.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And it's relatable. Like to me, it felt like you could put a direct like current times political spin on it, and it would still like play out. You know.
Right.
Is that what you were saying, Taryn? That a lot of these samurai movies are critiquing both the time that they are depicting and the time that they are made? Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely relevant. Yeah. So
okay. So I actually remember what I was going to say, which is how you guys were talking about watching it for the first time, and it's like super weird and like, I don't know. I watched this months ago, like I said, and I watched it again this morning, just kind of as a recap, and I like understood it so much more. Like remembering all the names and stuff, I was like, "Holy shit! This story is so intricate and it's like totally well done." Like, I was so impressed the second time, way more than the first time.
Yeah, I think it's hard especially in it's a totally different language than ours. It's hard to jump right into it. You're like, okay, what's all this? This clan, this place, all these different words that don't even directly translate like into our language. So it's kind of hard to get into initially. Yeah. I think I told you guys I tried to watch this movie twice over this last week, and I fell asleep twice. which I don't know. It's not. It doesn't say that it's a bad thing, or maybe I just had a really bad week. I don't know.
You're also really drunk.
It just no.
Hard to keep up with.
Yeah, it's just hard to keep up with unless like you are totally ready to dive into something of this nature, I think.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was wondering, like, at least the version I watched, there was a lot of interesting words in the dub, or not the dubs, the subtitles that I thought, uh, I was like, I don't know if they actually have a direct translation for this word in Japanese. Like, I was wondering how much of that is like,
Mhm.
well, here's the closest thing, but like maybe it is more impactful in Japanese.
Right. Even look at English. Like, I mean, we talk way differently today than we did in 1962. So you have like the double where it's like it's a movie based in the 1600s, filmed in 1962, translated into English, and then we're watching it in 2020. So there's like multiple layers of like
Right.
these language barriers that I don't know how much of an effect that really has. It's hard to kind of tell, for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I remember one that stuck out was like someone called someone lily livered, and I was like, back then maybe like that was intimidating or something, but now it's like kind of lame to say that.
The
You know what I
way it
mean?
was translated in the time, there was some definitely old school English like slang.
Yeah, like I'm sure that term would have been more intimidating with today's words or something.
yeah.
Right.
Lily Livered, what would that be today?
I don't know.
You
But yeah, I
can't.
mean, what?
No, I'm just thinking like you can't drink enough. Your liver's lilied. Like, I don't know. It's like what?
Yeah, that's a big insult for us.
Yeah. Fucking lily liver.
There's no
Water.
Lily Livered Fumblers, I'll tell you that.
Oh man.
But yeah, to kind of stay on the language and just the writing, I think with, again, with our last black and white movie, very poetic. And I think, that's also something that maybe just has to do with, Japanese language. Like, there's, certain quotes like, and the three of us lived happily with the constant sound of warm laughter, raising peaceful ripples around us. Like, just the way
that's so
that
good.
things are written, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh man, it's beautiful.
But that's what's crazy.
Definitely.
Okay, so like that's how beautiful is it in the native tongue? And like
not
is
probably
that,
not as
like
right?
that's what I'm wondering. Like whoever fucking wrote this shit or translated it, like they did a good job trying to bring it to us.
I think
right?
so.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. I think that's interesting. Like you mentioned the line about the swimming on land. There was a lot of those lines that were like, and yeah, like the one you just gave, it's like a good little, few lines. It does feel like a poem, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of one-liners, like with a lot of wisdom behind them and stuff. It was super interesting. It kind of goes back to like this whole, samurai honor code,
Right.
methodicalness, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of that, like, I don't know if you call it advice. I mean, they kind of frame, right? He's in the, the middle of the group, and he's like, I'm going to tell you a story that may wind up being your fate someday or related to your fate someday, whatever he
Yeah.
says, right?
Yeah.
That's a big paraphrase.
Mhm.
But like, it's so true, and it holds, I would say, probably close to the same weight today. Like a lot of those kind of timeless lessons, and
Right. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and we've even just turned them into memes, right? Like Confucius say, like there's a
Yeah.
whole series of memes about that. But it's directly like in this movie, Chijiwa is a teacher and he's teaching the children Confucius. Like, so it's
Right.
just very ingrained in,
It made me think of Mr. Penalty a lot. If you guys had him,
Oh man,
shout out to
Mr.
West
Penalty.
Mesa crew.
Yeah, Adam
He
for
actually
philosophy.
he taught the philosophy class, which was like a really experimental course. Like it wasn't
Right.
officially like a thing, and they were kind of just trying it. But I had him for a history class and then took the philosophy class, and it was really good. Like I'm sure movies like this would have probably made the curriculum at some point,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really. I mean, essentially, it was like a world's religions in a way too. Like I
Right.
remember focusing a lot on Eastern religion and kind of
Mhm.
culture and stuff. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, so I guess kind of go forward. I think it's interesting. Like Sugumo's character, just like the patience that they have with him is so interesting to me. Like initially Sugumo was like, oh, I've never heard of this Chijiwa guy. And then he's just like, actually guys, not only do I know him, he's my son-in-law. And let me tell you
No,
the
he
whole
doesn't.
story.
He's like he's somewhat of an acquaintance of mine. I'm like,
No,
what
yeah.
the fuck? What kind of
But, like,
disrespect is
so
this?
cool.
Yeah. You just,
Yeah.
you just know, like, he's completely lying about everything, and then they're just like, all right, well, we're just gonna hear him out. Like, we got nothing better to do. I guess there's no war, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But beautifully done. I loved the sequencing, and I don't know how popular that was in the '60s, where just like recounting a story, like where it's not happening during, it's not in live. It's just
Mhm.
it's
Like
about
flashbacks.
storytelling.
Flashback,
Yeah. But really well done. Like the way the way partly he's describing it just verbally, and the other part we're actually there watching the scenes happen.
Yeah,
It was really, really
it
well
goes
done.
back to what Jay says, you have to use everything to your advantage, And the way that this story is presented and played out puts the audience right into the story. Like everything's unraveling, and you're so engaged, and I think maybe it's from our point of view in our age, like, we ready, like we're trying to like figure out and pick all the pieces, like our attention span is like really short, and we're like really trying to pick the pieces. And I'm wondering if like people watching that back then, like, we're always trying to jump to conclusions, because like when I was watching it, like my mind was like, I was like trying to think of what was gonna happen, but it
Solve the
wasn't.
puzzle, yeah.
It wasn't anything. Like they were giving you each little crumb, give you a little bit of crumb
Right.
here, a little crumb there, and then towards the end you have the whole piece of bread.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And to touch into more about like the storytelling and how the audience is, like where the audience perspective is. Initially, when the flashbacks are happening, when the story is happening, the audience is like in Sugumo's perspective, where the counselors are telling him what happened to Chijiwa. But later on in the movie, it's flipped, and now we're in Sugumo's perspective, or we're in the counselor's perspective, and Sugumo is telling the story, and we as the audience don't know either way, kind of thing. And so it's just like the way that they kind of flip that. I don't know. It was fun. It like kept it interesting. Like, and you're just like, oh, I really do want to know this story, and that's why I'm just like, actually, I get why all of the counselors were down to hear it, because I was interested. Like, I was like, what happens next?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the way you put that, James. They
Right.
give you the crumbs, and then you have the whole piece of bread at the end. And it was like, in today's world where there's movies like this, like they do just kind of hand it to you right away, or and they just want to satisfy the audience.
Because this is slow burny, right? It's a little slow
burny,
burnage. Like you're kind of like, okay, and especially with the delivery of the lines, everything is really slow, and like,
right.
and then they like show a reaction for like a few seconds, and like everything's super.
Yeah.
It's letting you
Even with
marinate.
There's such a patience to it all, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which I think
Really
it all plays on the samurai way of this, like,
Yep.
everything is very calculated or thoughtful, right? Like, but going back to the storytelling and stuff, I was getting like, and maybe this is a product of like 2020 and all the things that have happened in the last like few years, is like when they would cut to like a flashback, they would come back to like the present time where he's giving the spiel, and then they'd be like, okay, let's get the ceremony going. And then he would just be like, wait, there's more, right? And I just like, but every time I was like, give it to me.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah, exactly. But every single time, I'm just like, are you serious? They're not just gonna kill this guy? Like,
I know.
Yeah, and I think what I love too is just Sugumo, the actor who plays Sugumo. I don't know his name. So good. Like, I was actually blown away by his acting performance. Like the way he's playing a character who has completely nothing to lose. Like nothing to lose. He's going into that temple and he knows that he's not leaving alive. Yeah. So he has literally all the time in the fucking world. He doesn't care. And like the way he delivers that attitude, and when he's asking for the second, what is it called? The second hand man, basically the person who cuts the head off after you disembowel yourself.
Yeah.
How he keeps asking like, oh, I want this person. And like, that person's actually out sick. And he's like, how curious. And it's just like, and then he asks for somebody else and they're also sick, right?
It's
and
good.
the way
his poker face
Yeah.
Even when they're telling you
Yeah.
about Chichewa, like he's probably livid inside, but he's just keeping it cool. Like,
Yeah.
all right, tell me what happened. What do you think happened?
Dude, his laugh is fucking iconic. It's good.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
It's so good. But
Yeah.
personally, my favorite part that just blew me away. So I was like, okay, got all these hardened samurais, and then when we get little Kingu in the story in the picture,
Oh,
this hardened Kingo.
yeah.
Um,
the king.
You get this hardened samurai that just kind of just melts. He melts his hard
Yeah.
armor exterior, and he just becomes this human. Like it's so fucking crazy. That's what blew me away. Like I was not expecting to see like any sort of family dynamic in this movie at all, and it was just crazy.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do character development backwards in time, like where just of how they're telling the story, but it's
Mhm.
beautiful. Like,
I think that's another ode to his acting, right? Like for sure.
Yeah.
But that part, it really like I'm glad you brought this up because it really like it was so relatable to me now, like seeing because we had a baby about 6 months ago, and our parents, right, becoming grandparents, that happens. That is real. They
Yeah.
melt like nothing. They become people that you are just like didn't even know were in there, right? Even the most hardened of like parental figures, like my dad, completely melts when he's around the baby and holding her and stuff.
Yeah.
And so to see that like in this movie again, 1962, I was just like, yep, like I've seen this in real life, and this is 100% how it is. They're singing, they're like moving,
Yeah.
that's real. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Making
Yeah.
funny faces, and that's
Yeah,
interesting because
yeah.
that's the first grandchild for both sides, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you got to
both
see
their
that
parents.
2 times. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one scene that I really want to talk about, I think maybe one of the most powerful scenes in the entire movie, the first attempt, I guess you would call it, at seppuku, at
So brutal,
Harakiri.
man.
Oh,
Wow. And very, very briefly, I know a lot of people listening to this may not watch the movie. To kind of go over it, the character that commits Harakiri seppuku first is Chijuwa. And so the story goes where he's basically very poor. His wife is deathly ill. His baby is deathly ill. And it just needs money for them to see a doctor. So he's pretty much sells everything that he has. He sells his samurai sword, which is, we find how important that is. Like that a samurai's soul is in their sword, as they say a few times. And he pawns them off and he replaces them with bamboo swords. So the temple forces him to attempt to commit seppuku with a bamboo sword. And just the weight of the scene, like I was just like, they're not really gonna make him do this, right? And they do. I mean,
Dude,
picture. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
it blew me away. Like there's even times where just like thinking about the situation, I was like, I don't know if I can look at this. Like it was that and like we've seen like crazy gory horror movies, but this was just something different. I was like,
Yeah.
he's not going to do this with bamboo, right? And he starts and you're just like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was not expecting that much like blood and gore. Like not really gore, but you know what I mean? Because in America back then, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't show even like the slightest reference to sex or violence or anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, they're gonna like start and then like pull away or something. But like how much they showed was so impactful. Like it's like what they're not showing is enough to make you just sick inside. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Jeez.
I mean, even just describing it for like our listeners who haven't seen the movie, you can just picture how gruesome that is. Just saying somebody trying to impale themselves and disembowel themselves with a stick.
Yeah,
like,
they mentioned something later. It's like this won't even cut tofu. Like
Yeah,
Right,
like the
right.
softest thing ever.
yeah.
And it plays back into how like these people who are making him do this are like so full of themselves, or they have no idea
Yeah.
like the disgrace that they truly do bring on themselves. And this guy doing this with a bamboo sword is like elevating this experience of honor to like a whole other level.
Yeah. But
And
they
the-
end
I
up
think
giving him
the-
tons of props. Like they're like,
But like in like a
it's
backhanded
crazy.
way,
Yeah,
it feels
yeah,
like.
they're
Yeah,
like,
it's
they're
like an
like, he did it.
insult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's in reality, you see the difference in the sides, right? Like he is actually willing to go through with this. Not only like, I mean, it's brutal enough as it is, but you're gonna turn that up to 10, and then they're
Mhm.
gonna downplay it all over, right? Later
laugh
on,
about it.
while it's happening, yeah, laugh about it. It's
And
insane.
they make him suffer before they kill him. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, because that's the whole thing about seppuku is like when you disembowel yourself, like Terrence said, they cut your head clean off. So they're like, okay, you did it. Good night. You know, like, but they force him to. He's literally begging them, strike me, and they just wait. And that moments, just the seconds that they're waiting, it's like
He finally just
tense.
takes it into his own hands. He's like, I'm biting my tongue off. I'm ending this myself, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he did that until like they mentioned it. I was like,
Oh, yeah,
Jesus
you're right.
Christ,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
that was brutal.
Oh man.
And they,
Heavy scene.
but they turn that into a bad thing, and you know,
Oh,
they're
right.
like, you know, he didn't wait for it to happen or whatever, which is total bullshit. Like the dude just went through the like a crazy, way more insane thing that they will ever go through in their entire lives,
Right.
and they're just ragging on him.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was infuriating.
Yeah. So I think to just touch on Chijo's character, like just the depth that he had to have been going through, because again, they talk about, James mentioned this earlier, about how dishonorable it is to go to say you're going to commit harakiri only for money, with that intention. And so he knows, he even says himself, like, wow, that's disgraceful.
Yeah.
And you know, the audience doesn't know exactly why he's doing it yet, but it's crazy because he's going there with the slight hope that he will get money and leave. But I think also he knew that, hey, this might not work and I may actually have to kill myself. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but he asks for, 1 or 2 days of respite to go. And I think he wasn't, when we're watching it the first time and he's saying he wants to leave, I think as the audience we're just like, this motherfucker, he just wants to leave to skip
Yeah.
town. But after it kind of develops, I'm just like, I think he just wants to leave to close the ties with his family.
Yeah.
And I think he will return and kill himself.
Yeah, maybe get some actual swords.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure.
But you just have that sense of like, he is actually honorable, I think, and this was just a man fighting for his family on his very last whim that he possibly could. And I think that he would have for sure went back and done it. So it's heavy, really heavy.
Definitely.
See a man push to those limits.
Mhm.
So, where should we go from here? I feel like, I guess we haven't touched on Miho, the daughter, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting character. I think, I don't know, just it's interesting to kind of go into Japanese culture about how Miho and Chijowa grew up together, essentially, and Sugumo, loves Chijowa, and he's kind of taken the father figure role because Chijowa's father killed himself with Harakiri, and so he's kind of, has this responsibility to like show him the way, take him under his wing, and he has this love for him, and asks him to marry Miho, and yeah, it was just kind of interesting, like the whole kind of arranged marriage thing, but not really, but
So remember he gets approached earlier by another man who I guess is of some influence, right? He's sort of from a more affluent family,
right.
and he kind of says, "I'm not going to sell my daughter for money," you know what I mean? And then then the guy comes back to him and says, "Well, you got to get with the times." That's what he told him. He told him, like you got to do everything you can to stay affluent and stay successful, like in the times, which is kind of interesting. Like, just no matter what times it is, there's always that bullshit of being forced into some certain things so you can get power. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to
Traditions
say?
and stuff.
Yeah.
Just the traditions. Like I'm sure that was commentary on something that was happening in 1962, just like it was in the 1680s. You know, so it's kind of shows that nothing under the sun is new, and it's the same
Hmm.
kind of bullshit that they're always trying to keep you down and make you sacrifice your family, your lives for any kind of honor, you know? And he
Yeah.
didn't want to do that.
It was like another facade, but he
Yeah.
wasn't buying it. You
Yeah.
know, he was like
Yeah.
not going to do that, which
Yeah.
is, you know, a real strength of the character. Like, it's just crazy, like the whole samurai honor thing, and then none of them have it, but he does. And what's the name of the son-in-law? Matomo or something?
Matome Chijiwa.
Matome,
Matome Chijiwa, yeah.
Chijuwa, yeah, and he has it, and they're like the only people that have it.
Yeah.
It seems, you
Right.
know, which
And
is
that's what I love too. Like they are the ones who have it, but they also are so, like, I don't know if wise is the right word, or they're so pushed to their limits where they'll even do things to kind of sacrifice some of the samurai honor, like selling your samurai sword, right? And
right.
like they have all of this honor, but they're, that's like, and even Sugumo, he's like, he finds out that Chijiwa sold his samurai swords, and he was like, wow, I never even thought to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
don't do that. And and he's like mad at himself for not have thinking to do
Exactly.
that. To
It's
make
like
that
they get,
sacrifice.
you know, they're into the samurai way, but they're cognizant enough, self-aware enough that even they know the pieces of that are bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
the swords are not more important than your family, than, you know, these lives of people that you love. And I mean, that stuff just blew me away, because you can relate that to like anything in the current days. It'd be
Yeah.
like people who go super hard into their career, right? And they kind of forget about like family and you know, the important values and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes all kinds of ways, but the relatability of the movie, dude, maybe this is why I didn't think that it didn't feel very old to me. Like,
Mhm.
maybe it's because it was so relatable. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
but-
even go ahead, Terry.
That is what resonated with me a lot, is that push against like the norm, I guess. Like push against tradition. It's like even now, like just like small stuff at work or something is like, oh, that's just how we always did it. It's like, why? Like there's obviously this easier, like more efficient way to do this,
Yeah.
but they don't want to try something because it's just like different. You know what I mean? There's the fear of
The
change.
only
or whatever.
thing that they didn't the only thing that bugged me was they had that same, a lot of Asian cultures always worship men over women. Like when his daughter was dying, he like didn't even care. He cared about the kid more, and I think it was because it was a male, and it was kind of an heir for his, you know, family. And I thought that was kind of a little old and
It reminds me
backwards.
of, yeah, it reminds me of like Godfather's. Like, I hope your baby is
It's
masculine. or
masculine,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was the only thing
Yeah.
that rubbed me the wrong way. That he seemed to
Mhm.
care way more for even Motome than his own daughter when he was dying.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that. Like, did you guys get that vibe at all?
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
didn't think about it in that way, but when that, like, so that was probably the only part of the story that I tried to like predict, was like, oh, she's gonna be sick or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like she was, but that wasn't the focus. It was, no, Kingo is sick, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is the thing.
Yeah, and
It's
like, look how much Sugamo is lost, basically.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that
Right.
felt like not a twist, but like it went away I didn't expect it to. And I don't normally try to predict movies. I think that's kind of, I don't know, it takes away from the magic or whatever. But in that case, I was just like, oh, she's sick. And it was like, yeah, but not, that's not important.
Mhm.
Which is, it did feel weird, I guess, now that you're saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really put that together, but now that you do mention it, yeah, he's really concerned about Kingo, and maybe, I mean, to be fair, we hadn't brought up Miho's character at all because she's not super focal. Like she's not the focal point of the
Yeah.
film at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has
So
very
maybe-
few scenes, I feel, too.
Yeah.
I mean, she's there, but
Yeah.
like, that's about it, you know?
Yeah, like Taryn said, it's almost like if she was there to demonstrate like, oh, this is just another thing that Sugamo lost, you know, like
Right.
as
Yeah,
opposed to like
yeah.
she's actually a character that's, you know,
And that's blood. I
really
don't know. Yeah, it's just
Right.
that's how that Asian culture is. I know firsthand. Like
Right.
there are a lot of they always care for the son and how it's gonna keep the family
Carry on the
the
family,
family line and all the success and everything. Yeah, it's interesting though.
Yeah, it's funny to think
Yeah.
about that. She's literally the only woman in this whole movie, and she has like no lines almost. Even when it's on her face,
Right.
she's just emotionless.
Hmm.
Looking at
Yeah.
her fucking. Besides when she's crying, of course, but like
Yeah,
her husband just died, and she's just sitting there. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Very secondary. Like every time she's in frame, it's like another character is overshadowing her. Like even a dead character, right? Like even Morome Chijuwa is more important in that scene almost than she is. Like her mourning for him is more like, oh shit, like he's dead, you know, and them finding that out
hmm
for sure.
Yeah.
But I want to touch back. We talked a little bit about just earlier about how they're almost more like basically there's this thing with law, like the samurai law and the way of the samurai, and then actual morality. And I think that is just such a timeless theme that we're even experiencing today, right? Like what is legal and what is moral. And it's something that we've always went through as a society with the whole civil rights movement. Like all of these things, you know, were illegal at one point, and now they're not. And now, you know, it's so cool to see. You know, like James said, there's no such thing as like a new story, right? Like we've always been dealing with this and we always will. But what the law is telling us, what the samurai code is telling us, and what is real for our families, for the things that really matter. And so like for that, it brings this really cool layer to the movie, I think. And it's a timeless issue.
This was like the one thing that I did read about this, not even necessarily this movie, but this director, is that he was basically like quoted saying, yeah, pretty much all of my stuff has to do with questioning authority in some way.
Mhm.
And you can totally get that here.
Yeah,
I've never seen
absolutely.
anything else he's done, but I'd be curious to. Like I'd be open to. It was really interesting and
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely was.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of echoed like current times and stuff is just like the healthcare system of America is like, oh, you're poor, guess you'll die. Like they just don't care, right?
Yeah.
Should have thought about that before you were poor, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
what it is.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Like this baby is just dying and like can't do anything without money. Like they literally say
Right.
that like we've
Yeah.
done all we can.
Yeah, and just like Suguma's, you know, his emotion when he's like, you've called a doctor, right? Like a doctors came to look at him, and like Chijua's just shamed that he's like, I literally fucking can't. Like I cannot afford it. You know, it's just it's heavy.
Yeah.
I mean I don't have any like knowledge of the Japanese healthcare system, but if it's anything like ours, then yeah, I'm sure it's, you know.
I wonder, and I wonder how it was like literally in the 1600s, right? Like how just like
Same thing. Got no
First-
gold.
Oh,
personal
man.
doctors where you just called a house doctor in and like they worked. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder.
It was so one of the funny scenes was like when the main samurai guy who cuts the head off when he goes to fight him in his house. He's like, let's not fight inside because if I cut this beam down, it's gonna be like an inconvenience to your landlord. It was just like so weird. I was like, nice guy. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not
Just
gonna
leave a note.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it was just I don't know, random thought,
Oh,
but
That was weird. I guess when I was watching it, I was like, is he saying it? Did he doesn't want to ruin his house, or that he like that it would be too hard to fight in a house? I don't know.
Yeah.
it was a little bit of
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
Practical reasons is like if I
Yeah.
swing this way, it'll hit the fucking ceiling or whatever. If I swing this way, there's pillars in the way, so like we can't
And it was
fight
like
here.
an insult to him being poor. Like you have a small
Oh,
house,
true.
you can't
Oh.
fight in here.
Ah, yeah.
Wow, your house is
not
so
enough
small I
clearance.
can't even kill you in it. What an
Yeah,
insult.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, interesting. Which so great that he gets his justice.
Yeah.
And I think
For sure.
that's kind of the next like really big thing in this movie is like his vendetta, like his
Mhm.
you know going on the hunt and really fun. Like again,
I was
think
not expecting a vendetta. I thought he was just gonna kill himself and whoop de doo. I really did. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I was like,
I was
oh
like,
shit. Damn.
yeah, and that the iconic hat, like just it was just
Yeah.
it gave you a lot that you really wanted. I think one thing is like maybe my caveman brain wanted more action, like more like, yeah, let's fucking see this shit. Like let's have this really cool, intense samurai sword fighting scene because we know samurai are such swords masters, and we didn't super get that. But I don't know if it was a product of the choreography in the time that it was difficult to make those kind of shots.
Right.
I felt like it was like realistic. You felt like every single like slash of the sword had weight. It meant something, you know. One false move, you're fucking dead. Like it felt real. Felt real to me.
Yeah.
Like it was very slow. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't insane.
That and like they said they just didn't have a lot of experience. Like even if they were master swordsmen, they were swimming on land. Like they hadn't
Right.
seen battle.
And Tsukumo's old. Like he's
Right.
he's an old
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Maybe-
one of those guys, one of the three guys that he cuts the tail off, he's straight up being a coward. He's straight up hiding around the corner. He's waiting for him to like peek around the corner, and then what does he do? I don't fucking know. How does he?
Shows up
He
behind
runs
him.
at him, right?
He
Doesn't
ends
I
up.
love that scene. Dude. He
ends up
runs at him and it
behind
just
him?
cuts to the next thing because you just know that he fucking owned his ass, right?
Oh, okay.
I
I
don't.
thought he showed up
I think
behind
that's
him.
the
I thought they
last-
No,
showed
that
him
was a
behind.
different guy. It was like a distraction, I think. It was a totally different guy, and then he ran down like that.
I thought it showed them
Street or
cutting off
something.
the top knots of the first two, but not the
Just the
Main
second one, I think.
I don't know, but one of them
Okay.
was fighting real dirty. He was even like biting his hand, like doing all kinds.
That was the
of
second
Oh,
one. That was the
was the
second one that
second
it shows you
Okay.
cut it off. Shows him cut it
Okay.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like used to the stupid movies that I was talking shit about earlier, like the 2000 or 2010, where it's like Jason Bourne, where the fucking camera's all over the goddamn place, and like
Yeah.
you can't tell what's
Get
going on. You're like,
movement.
this is action. Like, but
people are
Yeah.
like snapping necks and shit like that. Yeah.
yeah.
That was one of the like very first things that I thought about after the movie ended. I was like, the fighting like left a lot to be desired, but now that I think about it, I'm like, I'm not really that mad about it.
Yeah.
Like it seems intentional in some ways. I'm sure it was a limitation of the times.
Product of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
But if it was like uber insane, like, because think about like Kill Bill, right? It's
Okay.
like so over the top ridiculous that it doesn't. I mean, it's like cool, I guess. It's interesting to watch. It's like kind of insane, but it doesn't
Right.
hold the same weight almost. Like it's not as powerful, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the lack of violence makes it more powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like that
Sure.
first dude that he fights, like it just cuts to nothing, like the next scene or whatever, and like you just like this guy got his ass beat. You just like can picture whatever he did in your mind, and it's probably cooler than what they could have done, right?
Mhm.
And then like the last fight in the field or whatever, it just I don't know, like every clash just felt so good compared to like the whole last scene, which felt a lot more weird in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That the whole last scene is like choreographed. Like each like samurai does a move together, or like whoever are those guys samurai too? I guess right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Mhm.
and yeah, it's slow again though. Everyone's like, "Fuck, we want to get out of here alive," you know. We don't want to get our finger cut off by this old crazy ass guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also interesting too. Like Segumo, straight up says that he's like, you could have all your guys turn on me, but maybe some of them will be injured, and maybe some of them will even die. And it's just like, it's cool how
Dude.
he kind of threatens that, and
The way
and
he
it's
says
worked out,
that.
too. Yeah,
Like his guttural voice when he says like maybe some will die, like that part is so badass, and the wind is kicking in, and it's just like building like the excitement and hype and shit.
Yeah.
So good,
Dude, I
man.
think it's like the Japanese language is just so much more powerful than English, and maybe it's just like I don't know, we're English, so it's just normal to us. But like even watching like the little anime that I do watch in Japanese, and like this movie, like when they talk, like nani, like it's just so it's guttural, and it's just like it's really just powerful. It's like moving.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, really, really fun, really cool. I think to kind of go back to like about how Jay was saying like every blow, or maybe it was Taryn, like every blow is very calculated, very like it's slow, like especially on that 1v1. And that's kind of, I know this movie wasn't the movie that was directly related, that George Lucas was inspired by. That was another one that was on the Gauntlet, but you just see that like with the original trilogy of Star Wars, how things are kind of more methodical, and then the second trilogy where Yoda's doing backflips all over the fucking place, and it's like, it's just like so much different. It's kind of going away from that samurai type of fighting style where it's very much calculated strikes and blows. And
Yeah, which is so weird because I feel like Phantom Menace has like the dual fates, right? Where the things come up and things kind of pause and like they kind of meditate and seethe in their own way. And there was a little bit of samurai stuff there, and then they just completely throw that shit out in 2 and 3 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big rabbit hole to go
It
down.
is.
Yeah. I
like
was about to say something like,
I don't know the next time we're gonna go into a samurai movie, so I figured let's just briefly touch Star Wars because
I'm just trying to connect the Phantom Menace to as many episodes as possible.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I'll throw one out. That's a direct connection. Is these Japanese period pieces are called Jidai Gekis? Jidai? Does that sound familiar?
Jedi.
Yeah.
That's so
Literally
cool.
just grab that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. You had something else to say kind of about, I don't know if it's directly related with this movie, but just like about Westerns, like American.
Oh yeah.
Western type things,
I
which
watched
is
a really
interesting.
cool. Yeah, I watched a really cool video about the history of American and Japanese cinema, like way back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
In America, there's all kinds of bullshit with the Hollywood or whatever, but then finally after World War II, Japan, they started being able to make whatever they wanted. It didn't have to be some like wartime propaganda stuff. So they borrowed from Western movies, and then they made these samurai movies, and then Westerns, like what you know as Westerns, borrowed from samurai movies, so they're like very similar. Like Fistful of Dollars, have you heard of that? That's like a big Western, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a retelling of a samurai movie. Like there's a few of those. Like it's so interesting. Like I want to watch them just to see,
Yeah.
And just the central theme about Westerns is a lot of them are about like revenge and like going on these kind of vendettas. That's a very, very big theme of it, and that's what we have here. But we don't know it until like 2/3 through the movie that it's a vendetta, which is so fun. Like, James said about the breadcrumbs where you're just like, it leads into this thing where it's just initially you're like, okay, this movie's cool, I get it, and then it just explodes at the end, and you're like, oh, all of this has meaning and purpose. Like, really cool.
Even like the duel, the Western duel, 1 2 3 2 1 draw.
Yeah.
It's got the same vibe.
Yeah, it's slow, calculated. So do you think that Japanese people watch Western movies and are like, dang, those American accents are cool? Like how we think they're at like nani, like you think they think our stuff's pretty sick?
Yeah, except we're just like, hey, Buster,
hey, Buster.
Like
so lame.
Scallywag.
Yeah,
it's so funny. I recently
tallywags.
It's funny you should mention like Western voices. I recently rewatched A Star Is Born, and dude, Sam Elliott, his voice, like it's just like everything he says. It's just molasses. It's just like so smooth, like smooth but like guttural, and it's just like, oh man, if every American talked like Sam Elliott, I'd be like, wow, English is badass. Like.
True.
I love his voice.
So maybe it's just like, that's Sugumo's character. Sugumo's like the Sam Elliott of Japanese language, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of fucking Americans who have cool ass voices too. So, but yeah, so where are we? I mean, I think kind of we alluded a lot to the last scene where, I think it was very choreographed, and like it's always frustrating to watch a movie where there's 50 people versus one guy, and it's just everyone attacks one by one, right? And it's seeing that, and then again, that's like one of the probably the longest fight scene in the movie, where I'm just like, oh god, it's kind of for me, I mean, again, this is 1962, but I'm just like, this is a little played. Like, I know it probably wasn't at the time, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, there's like a few times where there's a blade like inches from his back, where it's like, oh, you just stab him, he's gone, he's done. But they just don't do anything, and then he runs away, and then like it just keeps like going.
He's all limping on his sword.
Right.
Yeah, and he does get hit, right?
Yeah.
Like it does happen, but
okay,
definitely.
So then they beat his ass, and then they all pull out the rifles, and then they fucking firing squad him. And this going back to fucking Star Wars Episode 2, or Star Wars Episode 3, when Obi-Wan Kenobi kills General Grievous, spoiler alert, with the blaster, and then he says, what is so uncivilized. So uncivilized. Yeah. And that's why I made that joke that, that at the end of the movie they fucking went all uncivilized on his ass, showing that they're fucking cowards again.
Yeah. That threw me off. I was like, what?
I was like, what? Rifles? I was like, what the fuck did guns get invented? I was like, what? I was like, what the fuck?
The calculation meme.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is also so in Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford does the same shit with that guy with the, I don't know which one it is, that guy with the scimitar. He's just like swinging it around, and then Harrison Ford just bang, right? I think they did that because Harrison Ford like had fucking diarrhea that day and did not want to shoot that scene. Like, I'm not kidding. It's like
yeah.
Wow. Diarrhea.
Yeah, they're straight up.
Character really well. In addition to that, but maybe that's just Harrison Ford. I don't know.
Yeah, and like it worked. You're just like, why wouldn't he just shoot this motherfucker? Like he has like a pistol on his hip. But yeah, so
one thing about this fight scene that I just don't know, like and this is where my ignorance will shine. But like, they focus a lot on the like, I don't even know what to call it, like the sigil of the house on the wall, and you know, they showed a shot of it being clean, and then they showed a shot of it getting blood on it, and I'm just not sure the importance of that or the impactfulness of that. I'm sure there's something there.
I wonder. Yeah, that could be like a little bit of blood on their family.
Blood on their
family. I kind of saw that as like sweeping all the shit under the rug. It's like, this didn't happen. Like, this is what it's supposed to be, kind of thing. Like, just clean, whatever.
Yeah, because they're like raking that area, and like they find the knots, and they're just like, oh, let's just throw all this shit away. You know, like, they died of illness. Everything's fine.
Fucking cowards.
Dude, that was so interesting too. Like, these three guys who were humiliated, right? They got their top knots whacked off, which is like in 2020 still like you know, if you're rocking a top knot, you know, there's some questions there, but you know, they do the honorable thing. They commit harakiri, but nobody will know that, right?
Yeah. Do all of them? I thought only one did.
One doesn't, I think.
Ordered. Oh, one doesn't.
They all did.
Some of them.
One
are
definitely
ordered.
Doesn't. Yeah.
Some of them, either one or two of them are ordered to. Like,
yeah, I thought they forced some, or.
But one of them, one or two of them for sure did it themselves. Like,
right.
Because that's how fucking shameful that is.
That's how shameful.
Yeah. And at any, you know, in any respect, like, they ultimately come full circle back to the honorable thing to do, but nobody's ever going to know that. And there's another facade put up of like, nope, they died of illness. Like, even they don't get the satisfaction of.
Yeah, that like betrays their whole thing. Is like, you did the honorable thing, but like no one's gonna know. So did it really count, quote unquote?
Yeah, exactly. Probably not. Yeah. And whatever way you know, pun not intended, cut it. You know, harakiri, slice it, whatever the phrase is. Yeah. Harakiri doesn't sound like fun to me. So you know, to have it, to do it. I mean, I guess, you know, if it's out of shame, is it really harakiri? I don't know, but yeah, brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. You know, cutting the top knot off is almost a fate worse than death, right? Because it's just how shameful it is. But I think it kind of, to give some credit to the samurai who did commit harakiri without being ordered to. It's like integrity, right? It's like they know how things work. Like, they know that they're probably going to brush this under the rug. They know how the system works, but like they're doing it for themselves, because that's another theme in this is like their religion and their culture. Like they firmly believe in an afterlife. It's not a question to them. Where like they talk about how Kingo died and then Miho died, and it is almost as if she was chasing after him, and like it's yes, afterlife is a thing for them, right? And so the integrity to actually commit harakiri to save whatever honor you might have left, respectable.
That's a good point. I guess I didn't think about that a lot, but it makes a ton of sense. Like when I'm forgetting the name now, Mitome.
Motome Chijiwa.
Yeah, Chijiwa's dad. He's like tells the main character like, "Hey, is there anything you want me to tell whoever had died previously?" Right?
That was.
Oh no, it's a different guy.
Yeah.
Saying, "Is there anything you want me to tell Chijiwa's dad when I go?"
Just casually before he commits seppuku himself. So weird.
Right. Yeah.
And then like when they change Chijiwa into the more esteemed robes or whatever, it's like you can't go there looking like that, basically.
Right.
Which is interesting. No, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I kept thinking back to like in I guess Viking kind of culture, maybe some other shit. It's like if you don't die in battle, you're not going to Valhalla. Like you're just not. Like so you have to like do this thing in order to have a good afterlife or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was mentioning in the beginning about like the where if you're really old and you're no longer fit to battle, but you are a Viking warrior, you have to kill yourself. Like that's the way into Valhalla is killing yourself, like by jumping off of a fucking cliff.
Which is interesting, going back to how you're saying, like the main character is a guy with nothing to lose. But he does have something to gain in his mind, which is going to see his family again, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he even says, he's like, I can't face Chijiwa knowing that I didn't do something, like that I didn't do something in your honor. And again, completely dismisses Miho, right? Like he's just like, this is for my son-in-law. So
that's
I
true.
couldn't face them. Yeah.
Feels bad.
Which now that James said that, I'm like,
bad.
this is some patriarchy here.
Poison the well, man.
Shit.
Okay, let's talk about this. Probably my favorite thing in the whole movie, right? So they kind of intro a few things and then they cut to the like classic, let's show the actors' names, let's show the name of the movie. And it's a lot of establishing shots of the house, right? The samurai house and stuff. The music and the whole movie is kind of crazy, kind of wild. But they keep showing the suit of armor, right?
Yeah.
The samurai armor, the symbol of
the house.
Samurai in its whole. Yeah, the house holds this armor as like an esteemed thing, right? Yeah. And in the last battle, like, what's the main character's name? I don't want to like say this. Sugamo picks up the armor, uses it to defend himself, and then just throws it aside.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck this shit. I'm a real samurai. And the light literally, boom, pins on him like a spotlight. If you guys didn't catch that, you should go back and watch that scene.
Actually,
it literally hones in on him and he commits harakiri right after tossing the suit of armor away. And I was like, this is fucking amazing.
So beautiful. Like just what that suit of armor represented to or what it's supposed to represent. Yeah. And just how he's like, no, this is what a fucking samurai is.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like,
the samurai is literally a shallow, empty experience of what a samurai is, but he's the full flesh, the full blood, guts, and glory.
Oh man,
I'm point in the movie. I was
hype, dude.
This is a good fucking movie. Like it's completely.
They cut his ass and then they shot his ass. It was like, what the fuck?
I know. And it plays a lot on. They kill him and then it cuts to the counselor and they just kind of talk about that whole thing and you're just like, yeah, these motherfuckers, like.
Yeah, he's writing in the little ledger thing, kind of making notes of what happened that day. Totally, the rich write history,
fabricating it all.
Yeah, that was just another day that they'll never talk about.
And infuriating again. I was just like, are you fucking serious? That was so badass.
Which is kind of like a bittersweet ending. It's kind of sad, huh?
For sure.
True, yeah.
Boy, yeah. So that pretty much wraps up like the actual contents of the movie. Do we have any final thoughts? Anything that we want to talk about before we get into the ratings?
I just want to shout out the duel scene because it's so cool, man.
Okay.
The
Yeah, let's
wind, the
wind.
angles that they shoot him at,
Yeah.
like it's so intense. Like the blades hit like 2 or 3 times, and it's like intense the whole time. I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to like just not having all the or any CG at the time, but not having to rely on that. And they're just like, what do we have to work with? It's ways to get creative, like the sound. Like let's really focus on the sound and just the impact that everything has. We talked about like the zooming in, how just impactful that is, and it's shown throughout this whole film.
The different stances they take, the fucking Wakanda looking ass thing, like
Yeah.
the way they stand and stuff.
What was that? I was like,
Yeah,
this guy's gonna get his
it's
fucking
so
hands
cool,
cut
dude.
off.
So badass.
Shit.
And like the way he explains it later, he's like, I use the wind to my advantage. Like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I fucking use the wind to break his blade in half. Like, it's so cool, dude. I can't get over it. Love it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Anything else, Jay, James? Anything you want to add into before we jump in?
Before we jump into ratings, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new segment where we rate whether or not we can fumble in the film.
Oh,
Can
God.
you? So let me ask you, Adrian, is this a movie that you could drink to?
Oh man. I feel like I could be sipping while I'm watching this movie. I mean, it's it's not okay. Here's the issue: is that it is in Japanese, so maybe reading subtitles won't buzz. But I would say that this movie is like not super hard to follow. But I think that's a good thing. I think storytelling is like a central focal point on this movie and it's done very well. It's not necessarily super linear, but it's done so you know exactly what's happening. Like I was concerned, I was a little worried that I was going to be confused by this movie, but I didn't really find myself confused at all. So I could be drunk watching this.
Okay. Can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I agree. The first, maybe fourth or third, is very confusing to me because of the names, all the names that they throw at you.
A lot of names.
But like literally just now, I'm thinking, I wonder if you turn off all subtitles and just watch. I feel like you could still understand what's happening.
Oh,
I don't know how much weight there is to that, but like,
wow.
because you see it, you see their facial expressions, you see the flashbacks, like, oh, they were together, like
Okay,
obviously
yeah.
these two people had a baby, blah blah blah.
Baby.
Like that's cool. I don't know.
Okay.
God,
So yeah,
you're
I think
right.
you can drink.
I think you're right. You could still follow this movie without subtitles. Like you know what's happening.
So
I'll
Jay,
go next.
you can fumble. You can fumble, Jay.
I 100% thought Taryn was going to say no because he's the only person who's seen it more than once,
Oh.
right? Like I feel like the
Maybe
first
that's
time
why.
you watch a movie like this, you're taking inventory. You're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get the story straight. Let me get the character names. Got it. Then you watch it again and you can dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the thing that he just said, if you turn off subtitles, you probably could. You probably
yeah.
could get an understanding of what's going on, which I think is a good thing. Like,
Yeah. Here's
It's-
what I'll go ahead. Sorry.
it's Adrian was saying it's like a simple story, which is like the world needs more simple things. Like there's a lot of, if you do a simple thing really well,
Mm-hmm.
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
dude.
which is like a lesson in art classes that we got a lot, which is, the
Keep it
KISS
simple,
method.
stupid. Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid. If you can do that really well, it just hits interestingly enough, I read this thing today in this book that I got that it says, the extraordinary is just the ordinary with a little extra, right? That's 100% what this was.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I think I want to touch on, you guys talked a lot about like trying to get the names together. We had that issue with The Godfather when we did that episode,
Oh, true.
where it was just like there was so many fucking names. But in The Godfather, I feel like the names were kind of more important. Like in this movie,
That's
you
true.
could just throw the names out. You could say grandfather, son-in-law, daughter, son, and then the council. Like
And, like
they don't
the
have-
house or whatever.
Yeah, the house
Yeah.
council. You don't really need to know.
Okay.
to understand it. Maybe to talk about it, you should know their names, but
Yeah.
to understand it, you know what's going on.
Huh.
All right,
Yeah.
James.
I don't know if I would drink during this movie. I already had. I'm gonna say no because I was honest with you guys. I tried to watch this twice and I fell asleep both times. I'm not exactly sure that I would be able to sit through it. Not shading the movie itself, but maybe just
Yeah.
my own willpower.
No,
I was like, if drinking makes you sleepy like me, then probably
Yeah,
not.
Yeah. How old are we? Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I gave an answer to that question specifically.
Oh, I
but
don't think you did.
Now that you say it, yeah, I don't think I would drink for this
Oh.
Yeah,
movie.
I would.
Not
I'd have
in the
to.
first go.
have to
Maybe
s-
in another go.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fair. Yeah, I would agree with that because, like Terrence said, at the beginning is like, okay, who is everyone? But
So confusing.
Yeah.
like once they explain it, everything starts to make perfect sense, and it's
By the end, you're like, okay, I got it. This
Yeah.
is this guy. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. All right, so now that we are about 50-50 on whether or not to watch this movie drunk, I would say if you're going to watch this movie for the first time, probably do it sober. I don't know if you're always like wanting to watch movies drunk, but if you are, well, give this one a watch sober first.
Start drinking it halfway through, maybe, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, maybe
There
halfway
you go.
through.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's jump into the ratings. I went last time. I'll go ahead and go first this time. This movie, after I watched it, again, before I watched it, I was like, I have no idea where my expectations are. I've never seen a movie from 1962, this fucking samurai movie. So I didn't know what to expect. And, after I was watching it, it's funny, every movie we do, every time we run a gauntlet, I have a particular movie in mind that I want to win, and it never wins. And then after we're watching it, I'm like, I'm glad this one actually won. And that's how I felt with this, because I was just like watching it, I was like, I'm glad I'm watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I'm into this. I'm all for it.
Mhm.
And I think just to touch on the cinematography that we went on a little bit, the zooming, just the music, how it was just like, it felt like, it was just like intense. It was just like somebody just strumming a fucking guitar thing like so aggressively, and
Yeah.
it's just they used all of these techniques because they didn't have what we have today, and this is such a great movie about storytelling, about just timeless issues, about questioning law, questioning what is authority and what is morality, and that's always going to be relevant. And I think this movie does such a good job at explaining that. It's so fun. Man, this movie's so good. It's a 9.3 for me. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
And I loved it even more, especially after talking about this,
Cool.
after the stuff that everyone said. Like, it made me love it more.
Nice.
So let's
Okay.
jump it over to Taryn.
Yeah, I want to go before I forget everything because whatever. I was so nervous after we did the gauntlet last week. I was like, dude, fuck, these guys are. I don't know if they're gonna like it. I feel like such an idiot for like even suggesting this. Blah blah blah.
Stupid.
I couldn't even remember like a lot of the shit that happened the first time watching it, and I watched it again after I finished it. I was like, nah, this movie's fucking cool. Like, I hope they like it because it's really I like it a lot more. But yeah, man, like as a first samurai movie go at it, whatever, like going in expecting just action most of the time and then not getting it, I was so happy. Like if it was full of action, like it would have been like fine or whatever, but like this more dramatic take on it is just so much more thoughtful and like just made it more impactful like on me like in generally, right? Like I feel like halfway through it kind of slows down way too much when they're in the flashback of talking about them being sick and stuff like that, but like before and after, like it's just like nonstop intensity. Like you're like, what is gonna happen, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie an 8.7.
8.7. All right. Nice.
What did you
So
say, Adrian? I already forgot.
I said a 9.3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, I went real high with this one.
I'd say out of the 3 that I've seen, this is definitely the best samurai movie I've seen.
Wow.
Nice.
Out of the few.
Nice.
I-
I'm notorious for rating movies really high.
I
though,
can
so
go
don't-
next if you
All right.
would like.
James, take it over, James.
Yeah, so like totally blown away by what they were able to do with the time. I think this is like really, because I've been thinking about writing some stuff and like how to engage in an audience, and I think that this is going to be one of the things that I reference during writing, because I think this movie for me is like it's I'm putting it as a pinnacle of getting the audience involved and making them curious as to what's happening. Just like I said with the breadcrumbs, that stuff was like really cool with me, like really cool. And then just being able to show this hardened samurai and then show his goofy, funny side, like, and just how he's human and a dad. Like, I was like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, I wasn't expecting that from this movie. And, like, that was just, like, so, I guess, refreshing to see. Like, I don't know, I guess maybe we just kind of carried, like, stereotypes for these kind of movies and, like, this culture, maybe. Maybe that's where we come, like, maybe that's how we view this. But everything about this movie was just, like, different than what I was expecting. But the shots, the music was terrifying. I don't know why, it was just so fucking loud.
So good.
It was so loud in the beginning. I was like, what the hell's going on? But just like the whole morality like complex that they had in the whole movie was just very topical. This is definitely a classic. It's going to, I think it's aged incredibly. Like it's going to be there forever, and people are going to see this and be like, damn, shit still sucks. Shit, life still, you know.
Yeah. What it's 30? It's number 33 on IMDb.
Oh, forgot to mention that.
Highest rated movies of all time.
Wow,
Like,
all time.
But
33. That's
up there. It's just gonna be continually looked at, and I think it's an 8.5 for me.
Solid.
Nice. All right, it's 8.5 from James. Jay, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always hard to go last in ratings because I've said all the things that you want to say.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
No, you know, it's just there's this movie. So in the past, other movies I've watched them, and right after watching it, I tend to like give it a score in my mind that I think I'm gonna, you know, say beforehand, and then I let the conversation kind of influence my score at the end. But with this movie, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give it a score because I wanted to let it sink in a little bit. I wanted to talk about it because there's so much here, but the story's so simple, but it goes so deep. And like James said, it's like a great influence for writing, for things going forward. Like more things should pull from movies like this, like where the substance is real and there's not much flash. There's almost no flash even.
Yeah.
But the substance carries so much more than the flash ever could, right? The storytelling, right, amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The lighting is amazing. The symbology is amazing. Like all these things came together where, you know, I was watching this movie, I was put in a place where I just didn't have expectations. I was like, I've never seen a Japanese movie of this age, of this type. I've never seen like a real samurai movie. If you count Kill Bill, seeing this movie, I'm like, Kill Bill's not.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, all those things combined, I just went into it and was like, all right, let's kind of see what happens. Which is really the beauty of the show, is like, there is that like startup cost of like, I have to like sit down and watch this movie, and I have no idea if it's going to be good or not, and we'll just see what happens. And sometimes it pays off beautifully, and this was one of those times, you know.
That makes me so happy, dude.
Yeah,
I was so nervous,
and I know you were nervous, which is interesting, right? That's like
I was nervous for you. Yeah,
I was too. I wouldn't have expected, like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna like this shit. And like, that was sick as fuck. Like,
hell yeah.
You know, everybody's given their scores before me, so maybe there's influence there. But I think I'm going to give this just a clean and even 9.0.
Cool.
Nice.
Nice.
Saw it coming. All right, so we have a collective score of an 8.87.
Ah.
Not quite Fumbler Hall of Fame worthy.
You're the one who rated low, bro. Why are you sad?
Chicken says, I like it.
Come on, rate it higher. What the hell, Jay? I'm just kidding.
I should have just given it a solid 10. Just to, no, but like Jay was kind of saying, is like I waited. I didn't have really a rating in my head, and once we really got into everything that we talked about, I was like, oh yeah, this is a masterpiece. This is a good fucking movie. Like, and it's like James said, it's an instant classic, or not instant. It's a 1960s classic. Yeah. Any last thoughts that we want to get out before we hop into the outro here? I think we've said all that we need.
Just want to shout out the cover of the movie, like the poster. It's hard to describe because we're on an audio thing with no visuals or whatever, but like it says Harakiri, and then there's like a red cross, like that's real jaggedy and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's like a nice white background with the red cross and the black Harakiri. And then I like realized today, I was like, that is like the cut of a Harakiri. I was like, that is fucking cool, man.
Over and
I just wanted to shout it out. Yeah.
That is really cool.
That's awesome.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. Be sure you are following us on all of our socials. You can find all of those at filmfumblers.com. Also, leave us a rating on anywhere you can leave ratings, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere. Please be sure to follow us on Twitch and hit that bell. Make sure you know when we are going live. Kind of getting close to affiliate there, so really important to follow us on Twitch and all of our socials. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Next week, we will be doing... Oh, what is it?
The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes
Royal
Anderson.
Tenenbaums, Wes Anderson. So again, follow our socials to find out when exactly we're going to be going live on that. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of your night.
Later.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.